Hello and welcome back. We now take a closer look at how we can work with S3 Object Store. So what is an object store? Here we treat files as objects. These object stores have a simple interface. You can add a new file, put, retrieve the file, get, delete it, or list what's there. However, unlike a file system, there are no directories or hierarchies or folders and so on. And we just address each object with a unique identifier under which it can be found. So what is an object store good for? We can use it for data archives, where we dump all the data in and we just need to retrieve it based on that key. We can also build data lakes on it, where we sort of throw all the data in. And we have many applications where we write once but read many times, like for example our video library, streaming, video streaming, photos, music and so on, if you want to store and serve all these data to many users. As we said before, an object store is not a file system. So just to sort of stress the point, there are no hierarchies or there are no folders or directories and so on. And it also doesn't behave like a file system. So the typical functions that you expect from a file system are not there. And you cannot use it as a file system on your computer. You can play some tricks here and there, but essentially you sort of work around it and hide the complexity. What you really do is you access an object store via a REST API or over HTTP or dedicated protocols and software. So how do we do this? And the following is specialized on the S3 Object Store cosign on RWTH Aachen University. Cosign stands for Collaborative Scientific Integration Environment at RWTH Aachen and offers free storage for researchers as part of the German NFDI initiative. So if you log into the web page, you see your home page, and I've added a test project here for our case. The S3 storage is organized in buckets and they are called resources within Cosign. So I've created here, for example, our RDM test bucket. This is just a test bucket, and even if there are some details about how to access this from within this course, I will empty this regularly, and it's also not very large. So just be aware when you play with this. So how do we get access to it? If you click on the settings of the resource, you get to this page and you get the bucket name and the access keys for reading and writing. I've of course blanked out the relevant details here in this public presentation. So how do you create one? So you create a new project and fill in the pop-up form that comes along. And then you need to create more quota for your resource. And you create a new object called RWTH alias S3. Then we have a S3 object store. Here you have the S3 resources. This opens a new web form and the request needs to be approved, so it may take a few days. So when you do this, take into account it's not immediate. S3 in Cosign is wrapped in the Cosign environment, and it only works at the moment with Amazon's Boto 3 client, and here's the relevant Python code to do that. So the first step is to get a client, and we use the S3 protocol, and you have the access key for writing, for example, that you've seen on the previous page after your code had been approved. Let's do a very simple check. Check if a file exists. Now on a file system, this is very simple. You open an Explorer or you type ls on a Unix system and so on. And if you do this on a file system and the file is not there, you will get, for example, ls myfile on Linux, and cannot access myfile, it's not there. But S3 is not a file system. It's an object store, so we don't have directories and there is no Explorer or direct commands and so on. Instead, we need to use the client and interpret the HTTP response. So if we want to check if a file exists, the corresponding code looks like this. We have our client, and then we call head, essentially the list command on the specific bucket for the specific key, in our case the file name, and then we get an HTTP response. If it's a 404, it means nothing's there, so that means the file doesn't exist. If it's a 403, it means access denied. So if you do it in cosine, a few words of caution. There is no access control. If you have access to the right keys, you can wipe out everything for everyone. So guard them carefully. There's also no way to change those keys if you accidentally make them public or give them to persons that you didn't want them to give to. That's unfortunate. There's no user access or user rights management, there are no user roles, no write protection, no file versioning and so on. That's all included in the standard S3 but not in the RWTH version of it. So as an exercise, obtain an S3 bucket. If you work at RWTH Aachen, you can use cosine or you can just use any other provider and interact with the S3 bucket. Upload and download some files, check if they're there and so